Hello, everyone. Welcome to Dean's Chat, where we discuss all things podiatric medicine. My name is Dr. Jeffrey Jensen. I'm the Dean at the Arizona College of Podiatric Medicine and the host for the Dean's Chat podcast. I'm joined today by my co-host, Dr. Johanna Richey. Hi, Joe.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here again. Dr. Richey, or Joe, and I are going to do a great interview today. The residency director for the John Peter Smith Residency Program in Fort Worth, Dr. Travis Motley. Dr. Motley, welcome to Dean's Chat.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Oh, we're glad you're here. You know, Dr. Motley, we're pretty informal on Dean's Chat. If it's okay with you, we'll go with first names, Travis, Joe, and Jeff.
Perfect.
Joe, take it away.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much, Travis, for taking the time out to come talk with us a little bit about your own career, and then also to highlight the John Peter Smith program that I know a lot of students are interested in. You and I first met through the faculty education program with the AO Foundation, and it's really been a joy to get to know you. So just to do a kind of brief intro, just to kind of get all the information out there for both prospective students as well as current students and residents. Travis, you graduated in 1993 from Texas Christian University with your bachelor's in biology and chemistry. You went on to complete a master's program in biology, also at Texas Christian University, and went to Des Moines College of Podiatric Medicine. After that, you did a 3-year surgical residency training program at the program that you're at, the John Peter Smith Hospital in Fort Worth, Texas, sometimes abbreviated as the JPS program. You were the chief resident there from 2001 to 2003, and now you're the director. So tell us a little bit about your program.
Yeah, well, I didn't make it very far. I just never left Fort Worth, really. Well, our program, on the resident side of things, it's 3 years, obviously, like you said. It's really divided up. Some programs start off where maybe in your first couple of months, they kind of ease you into the program. That is not at all what we do. You learn to drink out of a fire hydrant. It's by design. That's the way I was trained. All of our faculty were trained at JPS. So we set it up that way. You do get to spend at least 1 month. I mean, we get you for a whopping 30 days as an intern right out of the gate. And then you start your other rotations that are month-long rotations that are very busy. So whether it's internal medicine, emergency medicine, general surgery, vascular surgery. And when you're on that service, even though you're a podiatry resident, when you're on that service, you're on that service. When you're on vascular surgery, you're a vascular surgeon. Internal medicine, you're an internal medicine doctor. And we don't see the residents for 6 months out of their first year. So that's the way we designed it, and there are probably more gentle ways to do it, but it sure has seemed to work well for the residents. Nobody likes it right out of the gate, but they're all glad to have it done with, and it makes them better and stronger as soon as you get to Fort Worth. And we're a huge hospital for resident education, so we have the largest family medicine residency in the country. So we're integrated with all those. We're within the Department of Orthopedics. We have a huge family medicine residency, emergency medicine, oral maxillofacial residency, OB-GYN, psych, you name it. We have 2 or 3 of each of those. But so you really get integrated in your first year. Your second year is really where you really operate more. I think first years do a lot of amputations, irrigation and debridement type surgeries. Second years, most of our second year residents are very comfortable with probably 50% of the trauma that we see. And they're teaching, we really want our 2s teaching our 1s and our third years teaching our second years. And so by the time you're a third year, we really expect you to have a few cases you may struggle on, but you need to be a great teacher. You've mastered time management by the time you're a third year resident. You have your friends in the hospital, you have your friends in the OR. And we really work on kind of a family concept in our program. We're a little rough on each other. Everybody knows that. We have our own brand of criticism we deliver, but we love it. We take care of our residents pretty well, and we want them to work hard and play hard. And I think that the only evidence we have is their in-training scores, their board pass rates, and how much money they make when they get out. Those kind of like 3 basic things you can judge by. But that's in a nutshell. That's our program.
That's excellent. How about the call schedule? What does that usually look like over those 3 years? Does it get lighter as they become third years, or what does it kind of look like?
Dramatically. So we're within the Department of Orthopedics. So orthopedics An ortho resident will take at least one day a week of college, usually Tuesday. I don't know how it morphed into that, but it's Tuesday. Interns take 1 weekend or two. They'll take 1 to 2 weekends a month. Chiefs don't take any weekends a month. And then the twos fill in the gaps. So in our third year residents, they spend 6 months out of the hospital. So in that 6 months, you have a full 30 days to finish up your research project. And then you're just in the community. And it's not like we have to work to get residents in. These are all of our alumni that we've accumulated in the area over decades, and they love having residents with them. So they're busy doing a lot more of elective stuff than we get to see at JPS. They do probably more total ankles in the community than we do at JPS. So they get a broad exposure really their third year.
That's great. Almost like a building up for that kind of a opportunity.
Yeah, exactly. And our thought process was if we are going to send them into the community, we want them to look like the rock stars they are. So we don't want to send out ones and we don't want to send out twos. So if we're sending out the third years, we constantly get calls like, "Oh, we love having this resident. It's just really great." And, so we love hearing that.
That's awesome.
How many?
One of the things.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I was just going to say, how many attendings do you have, Travis, on the outside?
So our core is really 4. And so it's me, Alan Garrett, Lena Levine, and Brady Rhodes. We all trained there. We hired Dong Nguyen, who is also one of our alumni that mainly helps us with clinic. And then in the community, it's a laundry list. It really is a laundry list. I don't want to list them. I forget somebody, they'll be like, thanks for not saying my name. But our community in Fort Worth really is receptive to that. And it's a lot of our alumni that do it. So it works out good for them. Everybody knows how the program is structured and what's expected. So it's kind of, it keeps that community teaching going.
And that family feel. I love that you talked about your program like a family.
Yeah, well, it's. I didn't say it was a great family. It may be slightly functional, but like in your family, you can
all
be hard.
Families are different.
You can be hard on your brother, hard on your sister, but you don't let anybody else mess with them. And that's kind of the way we are. We look out for our own.
The other things you had mentioned that I wanted to touch on, you had said that they have the opportunity to complete their research project. You are the medical director for the orthopedic clinic, as well as the orthopedic department research chair. And your CV is remarkable in your extensive publications and research. Can you talk a little bit about research, in particular with the program, and then what your own personal interest and how you got involved?
Yeah, so with the program, like one of the requirements of the program is something that is publishable by the end of your third year. And, some residents, they squeeze it in right at the end. And I have residents that are pretty much done at the end of their first year. But as far as research goes, so we have a laundry list of topics we want people to pick up and take the ball and run with it. And those are usually more bench research or retrospective chart reviews, because realistically, that's something you can accomplish in a relatively short amount of time. We have funding available for our residents. Not only does my department fund that, and there's 2 ways we fund that. Number 1, our GME, or 3 ways. Our GME office gives us money. Number 2, our department chair gives me money. And we fund that money through my clinical trials that pays a lot of money to the hospital, and then we get a little percentage of that. And then third, that we started a few years ago, Dr. Nguyen actually started that, is we started a podiatry endowment fund. And so that is money that is meant for resident research, resident travel, and things like that. So they have plenty of funding. And then at JPS, we have an Office of Clinical Trials and Research. That started off as obviously a way to generate revenue through clinical trials and a large healthcare system. And it has morphed into an entire office of people that help us do anything. We don't have to know any statistics, and I am guilty of that, because there are 4 statisticians that we can use at any time, not only to help you with the statistics, but make sure you design your study correctly in the beginning so your numbers actually mean something. Yeah. And so we have this tremendous resource. That whole department is run by a PhD. So it's wonderful. It's easy.
That's fantastic, because again, as a student, young resident, We were talking with Hiro Shibuya about research and what was his advice for people wanting, and it was find a mentor. So it's great you guys kind of have created this network of support that, hey, we expect you to do this, but we're going to support you along the way. So I think that's great.
So Travis, can you comment on the clerkship opportunities for students from the various schools and College of Podiatric Medicine?
Yeah, so our clerkships are highly varied. I mean, you always have to have a starting point, I think, with what kind of student maybe you're looking for. And that's very difficult because you try to find some way to maybe rank them or grade them. But GPAs, I think we figured out over the years, is not the way to do it because GPAs across schools vary greatly. The distribution of GPAs is not a bell shape in all schools. Some of them are bimodal, some are normal bell shapes. So we go a little bit, probably our guiding thing would be maybe class rank because it's an indicator to us of your position against who you're competing against in your class. And that's the only competition you really have. That's not the be all end all, but it's a litmus test, certainly. The other things
I just heard a giant sigh of relief, by the way, from the collective podiatric students that are listening. So go ahead.
Yeah, but I mean, we all know. I mean, if you're looking at enough applications, you're like, man, that is a lot of 4.0s from one school, which statistically would be impossible. But anyway, so we look more at class rank and kind of where you fall, and we know certain schools, for example, the difference between number 5 and 25 in the class is almost nothing. I mean, it can be such a tight distribution. So we see the way those grades work. So we use rank a little bit. We love life experiences. So if you played sports, if you're involved in your church or your community, or you've done some mentoring, you've done Big Brothers, Big Sisters, Eagle Scout, whatever the case may be, Junior League, we don't care. We want something that's not just school. We love military service. I don't know if I said that. We've had a couple of veterans go through our program. And really anything that tells us you work in a team. That's really what we're looking for when we look at all of those things is can you be a leader? Can you function in a team? Can you follow a chain of command? And things like that. And I think that's valuable. And it doesn't mean if you don't have those things that we won't look at you. But if you have those things and say maybe you're on the lower end of your class rank, we're definitely going to want you to swing by Fort Worth and hang out with us for a little bit. I actually read personal statements. The ones that I'm least likely to read would say I first got interested in podiatry when I went to an appointment with my grandma for whatever, I want to hear something else. It's like there's a story out there that people tweak, and I think it's everybody's variation of the same, but it's, if you had an injury and had no idea about podiatry, oh, okay, now I'm interested. You didn't even know this thing existed 8 years ago, and now you're interested. So because that mirrors my experience, almost all my partners' experience, save one, has about the same experience as us. One of my partners' dad is a podiatrist in Fort Worth also. So we look for, rank, experience, anything that shows you have a team approach, that we love. That we love.
And then when they apply to JPS for a clerkship and they're accepted, what can they expect when they show up? What does their month look like, Travis? Yeah,
so I'll start it by saying we'll take anywhere from 3 to 7 externs a month. And it really depends. If there's great ones, we'll stuff it full of 7, right? If there's maybe a little less competitive, it may be 3 that month. But we start you off in clinic, and we have more than enough work. You're not going to be stuck in clinic all day. If we have 7 students with us, we may have 1 with another partner 10 miles down the road. We may have 2 in the OR. We may have 3 in clinic. And when you're in clinic, it's busy clinic. We're going to see 80 to 100 a day. When you're in the OR, there's going to be 9 and 10 cases every day in the OR. So there's enough work for everyone to go around. When we're in clinic, it's a lot of work. And if you want to make a lot of work fun, you got to joke around a little bit. But we try to mix in a little bit of academic. Our questions, we question externs constantly. Start with some gimmies, right? Coach pitch kind of stuff. And then we escalate from there and just see they can find their weak spots. We know their weak spots. And then we follow that up with a similar question that might follow a week later to see if you bothered to read or learn or do any of those things. And we do that at every place. So we do it in clinic, we do it in the OR, and that the residents, are responsible really for more of the social side of things. So they'll go eat, everybody will go eat dinner or go eat lunch together more than once while you're with us. We certainly want you to do that. We want you to see what our world looks like. And the important thing about JPS is, like, we just finished GRIPS. So when it comes voting time, so you have our 4 core faculty, and then we have 6 residents. So we take 2 a year. Everyone's vote is exactly the same. My vote counts the same as an intern. There's no exceptions to that rule. So if I think someone is maybe not right for us, but the residents think I've lost my mind and they think they're the best candidate, I get outvoted, program director or not. Now, there's no trump cards. There's none of that. So that's how we value the resident input.
That's great. So how many interviews did you do last week in Frisco?
52.
No kidding. Wow.
In one day. Yeah.
In one day. So,
yeah.
That's great. So what did the interview look like? Did you have multiple rooms or one room, or how did you format it?
Yeah, we do it the same every year. So we have 2 rooms. We start, a new student comes in every 10 minutes. We spend 10 minutes with you in a social room, and we ask, I mean, people think we ask the most random things in the world. I may ask you, what's the largest animal you think you could wrestle to the ground, right? Somebody may say a hamster, somebody may say a rhino, but you never know what you're going to get. And you just want to hear what people say, what kind of food you like. Just, if we didn't get to know you very well when you were with us, we're going to use it to ask a lot of common sense questions. What do you like? What do you like to do? Where would you like to go on vacation? Where's your dream home? Stuff like that. And that's for 10 minutes. And then the next room is more academic. So this year, I think they were playing cornhole while they're asking them academic questions. So it keeps your mind occupied. And it's our whole point of the way we do it is to try to minimize the misery on the student side. Because, I'm old, but I still remember how miserable of a process it was. And I thought it was just awful. So it's still a process. I don't think there's a better one currently, but we try to loosen them up a little bit and, let them work through a case while they're playing cornhole. So that was our interview this year.
I like that.
I think it's nice too, because I think the listeners will start to kind of get a feel. Again, It's funny when I talk with students and they're trying to get information. One of the cliches, but I feel like it's very applicable, is it's like dating, right? Like, you don't really know it's the one for you, but you'll know when it's not the right one for you. And so the only way to know is you go and you experience it, and you'll get the feeling, and you're looking for the one that's right for you. And there are so many excellent programs out there helping people identify where the ones that kind of fit with them so that they can maximize their externship or clerkship experience, I think is valuable.
Absolutely agree.
Travis, I have a question for you. Every year students ask me, JPS is one of the top programs in the country. I want to go there. Does it matter if I go in June or October? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't think it matters at all.
I
don't think it matters at all. Because this year was a great example too. So we had some students that rotated with us early on. And then early on, we expect a few things. Number one, we expect you to be very uncomfortable. And we expect you to be a little bit more quiet and reserved, right? Because it's new. This is new territory. This is not the same city you spent the last 3 years in. You're with us for a month. You're living in an Airbnb or whatever the case may be. We know it is very awkward. But we try to find ways to ask students questions, get them to open up and get them to give us their input and see where they're sitting academically. And that's pretty easy with some practice. And then it's amazing so if you compare that to someone who's rotating, say, in October or November, they've been around. They've had a few rotations. They're comfortable with it being uncomfortable now. They talk a lot more. They're more apt to give input or to answer questions fully. So we know that. And so I don't think it matters if you come in June or if you're with us during GRIPS. We know because we'll see people like in June. We knew they were great. They looked great on paper. We knew from the questions we asked that they had a lot of things to offer. And when you see them now in January in Frisco, they were like just and telling stories and fitting in. And you're like, I knew it was in there. But I remember doing that too. And I remember hating going to some of those rotations in a weird place. in a weird town and you get lost in the hospital, and it's very awkward for them, and we know that. But I don't, to answer your question, I don't think that matters. I think we know that June and July is very difficult for them, especially if they have families, they have dogs or cats or whatever they're lugging around with them. They have to accommodate for all these things and stay in the hospital a lot. So.
See, I concur, but the students don't always believe me or Joe when we say, seriously, you can go there in June, it's okay, but I don't know anything, right? And I said, they know you're a new fourth year, it's okay. But I think hearing that from you personally is really, really beneficial for the students, because I believe that's true at all programs, or most programs, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, and I mean, a smart thing for an extern to do, if we're your cup of tea, the residents give out phone numbers to every single student that comes through. If you're interested in a program, call them and tell them. Maintain communication, send a text here and there. I mean, that is one thing, especially in our program where residents' votes are the same as my votes. The residents be like, hey, they send us a message about every other week, and that keeps your name coming up. It's just like you would do anything else in life. You keep your name at the front of their mind and they remember those things.
Life skills and communication.
It works. Yeah.
And I'll throw a follow-up in there. There's also an importance of, and you can tell me how you feel about this, of reading the room. You don't want to be the annoying student that's bothering the resident constantly, like, hey, I love your program so much, right? Like, there is the balance of, well, no, hey, I'm interested, I'm excited, without becoming like, this person drove me crazy for 6 months, we're not going to take them. So again, be mindful of your social cues. That's what I try to tell the students. But you let me know, Travis, if I'm off base, and you guys love to hear from people regularly. But I know some residents have been turned off in the past from some overeager students.
Yeah, no, you're spot on. And when I was talking to Heroes Group about the same thing, I talked about tips for being a good extern, and they're pretty simple rules, right? I mean, things, Joe, you would think is just bare minimum. Jeff, you would think exactly the same, but it's be on time. And of course, on time is late, and 5 minutes early is actually on time. We talked about cell phone usage, like in the OR in the clinic. If you've got to take a phone call, golly, we understand that. But if you're scrolling Facebook or whatever, we will remember those things, right? And then the people that get comfortable, that rotate more in the end of the year, sometimes they reach that too comfortable stage where the jokes maybe are not quite the jokes you would tell if your mom was sitting around, right? Maybe the language gets a little looser. So those are just, common sense things that you see people, you're like, gosh, I wish you wouldn't have said that. Now that we're going to remember you for this instead of all the great things that you did,
Yeah, I always tell the students, be great at all things that take no talent, being on time, classic, right? Dress appropriately, all those kind of things, just so basic. This is fabulous. This is fabulous for the students.
And one other thing that I'd like to kind of highlight that you had mentioned too is, like, when you're asking them we're going to ask you a lot of questions that you guys ask them constantly, like clinic, operating room, and that you do expect that they're not always going to have the answer, because that's something else too, that, again, to Jeff's point, like, we tell students stuff, but they may or may not believe us. But what I'll tell them is, look, what we want to do also for students is give them an educational experience. So we're going to ask you questions to figure out where you are so that we can match your level of learning to your experience. So sometimes we'll have students that start to freak out if they're like, they asked me everything and I constantly had no idea what they were talking about. And it's like, that's not necessarily bad, depending on the level of what they're asking you. They may have been trying to help teach you something, not just get you to spit back stuff that they expect you to know. So what are your thoughts on that?
100%. That's exactly right. So, like we're talking about, you start off with some coach pitch type questions, some T-ball type things. And then I want to find out what your limit is. And then once I find your limit, I think, and this is, Joe, you do it too. I do. We all do it, I'm sure. Because if you love teaching, it's a fun exercise for us, which is, I'm going to drop that next question down a little bit. And I'm going to find some other things that I know you should know. And then I'm going to teach you how to get to the right answer. Yeah. Like, they know the answer. They can get there. There's a difference between answering on a test and then putting boots on the ground with it. So, it's, and they can do it. It's like they just have to be able to access that file cabinet in their brain at the right amount of time, and they'll do it. They can do it. You can walk people there,
Absolutely. And that's great, because that kind of piggybacks or transitions me to one of the things that I wanted to kind of ask you about with your own career. You've been heavily involved in academics, obviously the residents in your own program, but then also for American College of Foot and Ankle Surgeons and for the AO North America. But you're also a professor in the Department of Orthopedics at University of North Texas. So what are the things that you love most about teaching? And have you always wanted to teach, or has that always been part of your passion?
I don't know if teaching. I probably didn't pick up on teaching. Well, like when I finished undergrad, I always had some job of like building fences or construction type things. And then I finished college, and I knew I wasn't a great student. I mean, I was average. And I knew I wasn't done with school. I always enjoyed school, but I figured out pretty soon that like my true loves, whether it be ranching or whatever the case may be, were not ever going to pay the bills for me. So that was my motivation for grad school. And then I got lucky in grad school, and I got a fellowship at TCU, which means basically I got to go for free if you taught like the freshman biology lab. And I was like, hey, this isn't half bad, And so I went to grad school for free. I can still remember I got paid $400 a month, and I lived in this crummy garage apartment, and bills paid was like $350. So in 1993, for that $50 a month, I thought I was just living large, right? It was wonderful. And then I started involved. I had some really good faculty at TCU, and I learned how to do research. I learned that almost 100% in grad school. I don't think I learned any of that in undergrad. And then I actually went to work for one of my professors when I was in grad school. And then, because I did Master of Science, so you had to do a full thesis, and you had to do this presentation in front of the entire Department of Biology, Chemistry, and Geology. Right. And back in that day, you walked down in the front of the classroom with all the faculty there from the Addran College of Arts and Sciences. And I still remember they gave you a box of chalk, and they walked you to the front. And it was everything from draw a eukaryotic cell to let's talk about glycolysis. Right. And so it was then that I was like, this is actually kind of fun. And then I had to go get a job, and I worked for a year. And that is when I met, oddly enough, so it all correlates, and you can see where I'm going in my mind. I worked in the transplant lab, so I did cross matches, HLA matches, and then so the transplant surgeons were in our lab frequently. So buddies with some of those people that just did amazing stuff, and then so they would invite me to the doctor's lounge with them, which if you're Joe Blow, I thought that was the coolest thing ever. Right? And then in the doctor's lounge one day, he goes, "Hey, this is my buddy Mike and his partner Martin, and they're podiatrists." And I was like, what in the world I had no idea, right? And then these two guys are the nicest guys ever. They were like, well, you should come hang out with us in our office, and then you walk in there, it's a nice office. You look in the parking lot, it's a couple of fancy cars, you're thinking, all right, well, this is interesting. And then so they got me going. I applied to, like allopathic, osteopathic, and podiatric. And I had some choices to make, and I wasn't really sure. I interviewed a couple of different places, and for some weird reason, I went with podiatry. And then after that, as soon as school started again, I was like, oh, I mean, it's hard to say you missed it because it's such a beating at some stage. But I always enjoyed it on some level. And then residency, I got to do. I mean, I published some things as a resident. And then that's what really got me going again, was that. And then at the time, as soon as I finished residency, I mean, I graduated on a Friday and started on a Monday, and then we worked for University of North Texas Health Science Center. And we had a lot of resources because as a state school, man, they had a lot of resources. And so doing research there was relatively easy. It was just a lot of work. But I mean, as far as like the hard part of citations and statistics were pretty much done for you. And then I had people in my department that wanted to do it too. And so that's what made life a lot easier. And then we just kept publishing and publishing. And that turns into, come give us a talk here. That turns into FACFAS stuff, which then, as you know, turns into AO stuff. And then, then you're around people that love it too. And you'll be eating dinner thinking, hey, maybe we should do this, and then there goes your next, there's 4 articles that are sitting there waiting. for the next batch of residents and pick up. So that's a long way of telling you how I got to where I enjoyed research. It counts as research. Clinical trials are totally different. The hospital loves it because financially it is wonderful for a hospital. They call it research. I'm not sure it is. It is at some level, but it certainly funds the good research. So that's what we like about clinical trials.
No, that's funny you mentioned that, Travis, because we had a big debate about that when I was in Miami, because we had a big research department, and NIH did indeed designate clinical trials as a form of research, because that's always a debate, because it's not really research, right? You're just providing patients, and you're blinded. You're not really even participating. So I get what you're saying there.
Yeah. Well, University North Texas Health Science that are considered it research has found it up with full professor.
Right.
There was a lot of publications that come out of those clinical trials, and that's a great pathway to easy publications, because now a group of 10 PhDs are writing your paper for you.
And if you're a big enroller, you're in.
That's it. That's exactly right.
You're right.
Yeah.
That's a great
And on
story.
that, you have some really impressive grant history. I mean, you have over $500,000 in grants that you've accumulated over the years, which is really unique. I don't know if as many of our academic faculty necessarily have that kind of grant experience. Could you talk a little bit about the grant process?
Now, grants are very different. You almost need help writing them. There are things that I'm not good at, which would be like keywords and phrases that drive these things. Most all of those come from clinical trials, and clinical trial people are very, very good at that skill set. And so there's a lot of money in there, but by the same token, the way it seemed to work out for me is that our healthcare facility, we're a large volume place, and I can give patients things that my hospital may not provide for them, and I can give it to them for free. And then I can give them all their office visits for free. And my patient population loves that. Now, I have a private office too, and that's a little bit different deal. But when you're working in an indigent care facility, sometimes I can give, the best of the best to all these patients for free. And the way that translates is then you're a high enroller just because of your volume. And then next time you're asking somebody for money, it's like, they see a ton of patients over there. They help a ton of patients. They're interested in research. And then that's where the grant money gets easy. And then once you are a performer, and Jeff knows this, if you're a high enroller, the next 10 studies, people are beating down your door. Yeah. I mean, I don't know how these people talk to one another, but if they see over-enrolling studies, the next 10 studies that come out, you may have to turn a few away, actually. It really builds on itself. But like I said, the whole reason clinical trials are easy for us is we have a whole department for that. We embed those people at every office that we have. They're in our private office, our JPS office, and so they run that show for us.
That's
fantastic.
I found it to be an easy way to build a practice, because once they're out of the clinical trial, they're your patient, That's
right. So exactly right. Yeah, and you make them happy. You get to give them a lot of free stuff that you can't even buy sometimes.
Good point.
And it's wonderful. Yeah.
Absolutely. That was a great story. For some reason, I think you probably are good at writing those abstracts and things.
I don't know. Joe's had dinner. We've had dinner at some of these AO things. I'll tell you different stories. So may I shift gears just a second?
We'll save those for a different podcast.
There you go. So Travis, one of the hot topics in our profession is fellowship training. And Joe and I are asked every day by our students they're looking so far ahead, right? They don't even have a residency, and they're wondering if they should do a fellowship. At JPS, I see all the comments online and in discussions that these students or residents are coming out well-trained and ready to go into practice. How many of your residents go on to fellowships? What are your thoughts on fellowships? Who should do them? Who shouldn't? The floor is yours.
Man, I don't know. I think when I finished, the same debate was, do we need a third year?
Yeah, you're right.
So at our hospital, I was the first third year, and we've had 3 residents go on to fellowship. So Mike Downey went with, blanking. I shouldn't even have said his name now, in Philly, and he did a fellowship after our program. And I thought, that's such a waste, But that Dr. Downey wanted to go. He wanted to be part of Speakers Bureau. He wanted to go to FACFAS. He wants to do those things. And he's a good educator. I mean, he does great. Our residents work with him. He really does great. We had another resident, Jordan Ernst, did a fellowship with Brad Lamb and just loves it. He was a guy that was driven to do that for whatever reason. He was a veteran in his infantry. This guy was a go-getter and he wanted to do it. It's not like he needed to do it. I mean, sure, you pick up better skill set doing more volume, and his a lot of framework, and he enjoyed his fellowship. And then one of our current chiefs is going to do a fellowship. So that'll be 3 out of our program. And, I look at it and I'm like, what did you get? Well, I know what Mike Downey got when he left, and he got a lot of total ankles, and he does a lot of total ankles. So it served him well. Jordan Ernst did the same thing, and I've got my 3rd year now, so we'll see. But I think if there's a particular niche that the program you want to go to is not huge in, then maybe it serves. If you want to do the academic route, I think that a lot of people think that you need to do a fellowship to do that. I don't know if that's true. I think if you start doing some work and start getting some publications out, that's the true pathway. And then if fellowship makes you work harder for publications, then maybe they work together. It's never going to hurt you. It's just, does that year trade off for you? And I think that's where podiatry is, obviously different than orthopedics, is the days of people finishing an orthopedic residency and going into practice. They're just, nobody from our residency program in orthopedics does that. Everyone does a fellowship, everyone. And that's coming from JPS, which is obviously a trauma heavy hospital, but they all go do it. Every single one since I have been a resident has done a fellowship. So that's 20-something years. So I don't know if it's necessary. If you enjoy it, I think it's never going to hurt you. More training is never going to hurt you. But if it's a return on your investment of time, I don't know, and I'm not sure I know how to measure that. It's not going to affect your paycheck, but it may give you some some pathway to get a quicker way to go to the college if you really want to teach. But I have residents ask me, "Hey, how did you start doing that?" I was like, "Well, that's easy. It starts with bench research, and then you get some money, and then you can do cooler projects, then do bigger projects and longitudinal studies with your friends, and then it builds up, and then say maybe I'm talking to the Dallas County Podiatry Society, and then maybe I'm talking at the state society, and then maybe a local state society, and then eventually 10 years later, you may talk at the college, right? But everybody thinks, oh, I want to talk at the college. Oh, great. Well, you missed the first 14 steps, which you didn't talk about, right?
Right.
So there's a lot of work in it, and that's why I think if the college asks you to talk, number one, you always try to say yes, because there's a committee of people that think you're the right person to talk on the topic. So that's a pretty big thing.
Yeah, people just see the talk. They don't see the 10 years of work you did to get there.
Exactly.
Well, thank you for that insight, because, in some ways, as we discussed, Joe, fellowships can give you confidence, and that in and of itself could take you a long way, right?
Absolutely right. Absolutely.
And sometimes also just a different experience. So as you said, for 3 years, you kind of get the Fort Worth experience. You get, similar maybe thought processes and treatment algorithms. And for the most part, I think what we do is similar. But maybe you want to go back to a different place and, kind of getting a feel for a different community or different hospital system, or, there's so many different practice settings. So giving a different experience sometimes may for some residents be of value. And for others, they're like, I can figure that out. And they're absolutely right? So I think that confidence and experience idea, it's very individual in terms of, is that something that you feel you want or that you need? And, not that they necessarily need a whole nother year of training as much as they just want to feel more comfortable in a different setting or in a different niche, as you said.
Yeah, great point. Absolutely.
So
I have some questions.
Go for it.
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna go to the other end of the spectrum of incoming students, but you go first, Joe, and I'll ask mine in a bit.
Actually, you do incoming students, because I was going to shift to outside of podiatry.
Oh, okay. So Travis, what would you tell a student majoring in biology who's considering a career in health sciences about the podiatric profession?
Gosh, I think anything in medicine is a hard sell right now. I think that the positives of podiatry are probably the positives of selling widgets or building buildings or digging ditches. I think if you want to go in the sciences, and then obviously we meet somewhere between, advanced PhD type or allopathic, osteopathic, pediatric, whatever the case may be. I think showing people the pathway and the time that it takes to get there, which is roughly the same as family medicine, right? That here's what you could do as a family medicine. Here's what I do as a podiatrist. I have tons of friends that are internal medicine, family medicine, and obviously tons of podiatrist friends. We all are equally happy, I think. And I'm happy because I can provide for my family. When you're young, your priority may be, can I get a nice car? And then the older you get, your priorities like flip flop. And now I'm worried, my God, I got 2 kids, I got to pay for weddings and, all those things. But if you're willing to work, I think if you sell widgets or you're a podiatrist and you legitimately put in the work, you are going to be successful and you're going to be happy. But it's just like anything. There's nobody that is happy in all those things that goes home at 2 p.m. every day and has every weekend off. It's all about working and being efficient and prioritizing your time with your family and your hobbies and, whatever keeps you running and not wanting to pull your hair out.
Well said.
But I would tell them you can be just as happy and successful in podiatry as you could be in any other specialty with the same amount of training. Now, if you want to crack chest and do hearts and all that, that's a different piece. But those people have a dramatically different lifestyle. And that's a lot tougher, I think.
Well said. Well said. Well, that's a good segue into your question, Joe.
Yeah. So outside of all of your professional accolades, what do you do? Unwind, or if you have some time in your schedule, how do you unwind?
Gosh, well, my favorite thing to do, I'll say my favorite thing to do is relax and hang out, drink wine, cocktail with my wife. I met my wife when I was in high school. So, no, we didn't get married in high school. We're not that redneck, but we've known each other for an awful long time. And so we do a lot of the same stuff. We started having the ability to travel a little bit. I'm not a world traveler at all, but we've really been fortunate to go to some really fun places together. So I enjoy that. But the hard part about traveling is that there's no vacation in our job, really. It's just deferred work. Yep. So if you're gone for 10 days, you better do 5 of those days before you leave, and you're going to double up 5 when you get back. But that's the same in anything. If you run your own business anywhere, that's going to be the work you do. My things to do, and hanging out with my kids. I have 2 girls, 22 and 20. And I love getting to hang out with them. But my true blow off steam, my wife's glad I did it type thing, is ranch time. We have a ranch in Southwest Texas, and it's a happy place for sure. You can shoot guns, you can catch fish, you can hunt, you can do whatever you want because there's nobody out there ever. I mean, there's not a soul out in that part of the world. And peace and quiet and really crummy cell signal is a wonderful. It makes me happy. But I grew up doing a lot of that stuff, and I still enjoy it. It's just I learned early on that it's not going to fulfill me to do that. Mm-hmm. I think I could be okay as a farmer rancher, but I don't think I could help a lot of people.
So, do you shoot sporting clays?
I have. I'm not great sporting clays. I do fine in all bird hunting, but I'm more into long range rifle and a lot of pistol stuff. So trust me, there's not a gun I won't throw at a shoulder and let's go have a good time with it. But I probably do a lot more long range than anything else.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of math.
Yeah, there you go. In Phoenix, we have a facility called Ben Avery, and they've got a 1,000-yard long range field. So,
Oh, yeah.
So there's a lot of competitions going on just not far from the school. So
It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to do that. Yeah. It's a good hobby.
Very good. So I have a question for you. Are you a football fan?
Love it.
What happened to the Dallas Cowboys last week?
Well, I said I was a football fan. I didn't say I was no, I mean, I'm not one of the guys here who say I hate the Cowboys. I mean, they're local to me, so they're right down the street. I'd love to see them do well. It's good economically for the Metroplex when the Rangers, the Mavericks, the Stars, and the Cowboys do well. I mean, the economic impact of having a sporting team in your area is tremendous. I, however, would rather watch college football 24/7, 365.
There you go.
Now, I'm a TCU guy, so last year was really wonderful until it wasn't at the end. And my oldest one goes to Bama, so I get to act like I'm a Bama fan too. And so what's not to like? And then Nick Saban is gone, so that's like a heartbreak for an entire town.
Absolutely. No, nothing like college football. I agree with you.
I just love it. I love it. D3, I don't care what it is. I'll watch football, And then here, of course, we have high school football, which is really close to a good level of college ball.
Very good.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a quick story. I was at an event. I shoot sporting clays, and there were a bunch of Alabama fans there. And they said, "Where are you from?" And I said, "I'm from Wisconsin." And they said, "Do they even play football in Wisconsin?" And I said, "Yeah, the NFL."
They don't recognize Big Ten football as football. Yeah.
No, they definitely have a chip on their shoulder, no doubt. Justifiably so, I might add, right?
Yeah, right. So, until this year, Big Ten showed up.
Great. Yes, they did. Well, Travis, this has just been a phenomenal discussion. Thank you so much for carving time out. Joe and I have been so looking forward to interviewing you, and we really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I enjoyed it too, man. Thanks for having me. That's pretty cool.
Very cool. And you know what?
Yeah, thank you so much.
Our students are going to love to listen to this because those little insights about top residency programs are universal, really. And we really appreciate that. So for all of our listeners out there, if you are on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please give us a 5-star rating. And if you're on YouTube, by all means, become a subscriber. And Travis, we're going to send you one of these Dean's Chat cups. Then you can take it down to the ranch, when you're shooting guns and stuff and drink coffee.
Sounds great. I'll do it.
All right, everybody. Until next week, cheers. Bye-bye now.